11, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to practice visualizing. I actually made the mistake of doing it at night, and before I knew it, it was morning, and I woke up and I'm like, did I visualize or did I just fall asleep? And I kept doing that and doing that. I'm like, this is great, it puts me right to sleep. But then I was like, no, you know what, I'm not really practicing it, am I? And why am I falling asleep? Is it because I'm bored? But actually, it's not. I don't, or at least I don't think it is, because I've also heard studies about people who visualize. They would study their muscles, and the same muscles fire when you're just visualizing as the muscles that you use when you're actually racing. So that goes to show that your body's actually working pretty hard when you're just visualizing. It's amazing the physical effect that you have from the mental side of things. Who here has ever experienced, you watch a sad movie, or you read an inspirational quote or hear a good story, and your arm goes all goosebumps. Get a bunch of goosebumps. Everyone's experienced that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's a perfect example of how you can think something and have a physical reaction to it. So this is exactly what you're doing when you visualize in training. So that's what I did. Another good example was I went to my friends. I have a bunch of friends who are on the Canadian luge team, and I went and watched them race there at COP. And I remember they're about to start, and I couldn't see anybody warming up. I'm like, where do they warm up? Like, where is everyone doing their stretching and their jogging and their sprints? And like, come on, like, geez, like they're not very serious. They need to get on it. And how are they? Their muscles are going to freeze out here. It's -20. And then I look inside, and I see my friend, and all I see him is going like this. Guess what he was doing? He was warming up. He was visualizing. He went through his entire run just visualizing. And that was his warm-up. Then he goes to the line and he knows exactly how his race is going to go. I remember Kevin Crockett saying that before he won his bronze medal, he already knew he was going to get there because he had already visualized it, which is kind of cool. And it's those extras that you do that really set yourself apart. Now, like I mentioned, it's really hard, it's exhausting doing this, and you have to be prepared that it's going to be hard. Now the way I look at it, and especially when I was following really hard diets and stuff that were, it was hard to say no to the, Tim Hortons donut or what have you, but I actually look at it as a good thing, because think if it was the easiest thing ever to eat well and to visualize. Wouldn't we all be doing it? If it was really fun and easy and didn't take a whole lot of patience or time, we'd probably all be doing it. So I look at it as, hey, if all my competition isn't doing that and I am, that gives me an advantage, doesn't it? So for all these disadvantages that I have health-wise, why don't I look at all the advantages that I could have and that I could work on? So that's what's, a cool opportunity for us. We have all these, advantages and choices and things that we can do to kind of set us apart. Now back to my journey with healing and with my skating. Recently, in May, I was going through a little bit of a stressful period mentally, and I wake up and I started to go a little bit blurry in my left eye, and I didn't know what was going on. Later that day, I didn't even feel comfortable driving, it was so blurry. The next day I wake up and I was like, ooh, I think I'm completely blind in my left eye. So I went and tested. I went outside, it was a bright sunny day, and I went like this. And I stared at the sun and I couldn't see a thing. I had no idea I was staring at the sun. I was so blind in my left eye. This is called optic neuritis, and it's one of the most common symptoms in MS. It just so happened that I was going through a very stressful period. Like I said, a mental problem can actually turn out physical as well, and I believe that that's what happened to me and why I got this symptom. So I was looking at it and I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. I'm going back into relapse, and at this point I hadn't had a relapse in a really long time. I had also been studying nutrition and been surrounding myself by positive people, and I was motivated enough to stop all medication. So I said, you know what, I'm going to change something again. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to go off the daily injection that I had to do for 5 years. So I had to have a needle, and I had to inject myself every single day for 5 years straight. And in May, after I woke up with my eye, I'm like, I'm going to change something. I'm going to stop taking my medication. I'm going to focus more on the natural treatment of things. And there was this new treatment coming out that interested me. The only problem with it was that it wasn't available in Canada. And I didn't know if I was eligible or not, but they didn't even do the testing in Canada. So of all places, I had a connection to do it in India. And so I said, okay, I think, I called my parents, I'm like, I want to go to India for this treatment. And they're like, Crystal, like, what have you got up on your sleeve this time? And I was like, I need to raise a lot of money, and I need to go to India, and I need to get tested for this thing. They're like, okay, well, like my parents would, they're just, full support, and both my sisters all in 100%, and, I started to, stop taking the drugs, and, nothing really changed, and I started practicing again all my visualization and my positive thinking and all that, and something came about it that was actually super, super fun. Now it starts with my friend Shannon Rampel, who you guys might know of, because she's a very famous speed skater. She's a good friend of mine, and she has a BlackBerry, and she bedazzles her phone. So I don't know if you guys know what that looks like, but she puts a bunch of jewels on her phone. And I thought that was kind of funny. I always give her a hard time, because I've got a little boy, I've got a little bit of a tomboy inside of me, so I never really bedazzle things. So I give her a hard time, and I write, and when I lost vision in my left eye, I actually had to wear this eye patch. It was awful. Like it was, everyone was staring at me, and I was super embarrassed. And then I go for dinner with a friend, and the server comes up to me, and she's like, "You just have to ask." She's like, "Is that for real, or is it a fashion statement?" I'm like, "A fashion statement." She's like, "Oh, that's so cool. Like, you really pull it off." I was like, "Thank you." So that sort of gave me the confidence to keep wearing it, because I was like, wow, someone actually gave me the credit that I could pull this off as a fashion statement. So that gave me the idea. I emailed Shannon and I said, "Hey Shannon, I need you to bedazzle my eye patch," because she bedazzled her phone, and it was just as a joke. My other friend, Toby, who's also a speed skater, she sees that post, and she sends me a picture of this fashion magazine, and on the cover there's this Vogue girl. She's got some kind of eyepiece feather thing on her face. And she's like this? And I'm like, aha, that's so funny. A couple days later, Toby calls me and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I'm like, "No plan." She's like, "Want to have a barbecue?" "Yeah, okay." So she comes over with steak and potatoes and corn, eye patches, jewels, glue, and feathers. And I was like, "What's up?" And she's like, "We're going to bedazzle eye patches." I was like, "Oh, great." So me and Toby and my roommate Laura, we bedazzled these eye patches for, I think we spent 3 hours on it. And it was super fun, and it was exciting, and we took pictures of our eye patches after, and they looked pretty cool, and looked like we were out of the Vogue magazine, or should be in Vegas or something. So the next morning, I called my mom, and I'm like, "Mom, guess what I did?" Because of course, whatever emotion I'm feeling, my mom's feeling it 1,000 times worse. I'm doing fine, but she's always just so scared for me and worried, sick about how I'm feeling or dealing with this eye problem. And I call her to tell her the funny news about me bedazzling my eye patches and how fun it was. And she's like, "Oh, that's funny. Cancer does shave your head, and MS does eye patches." And I was like, "Mom, that's a really good idea." She's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "I gotta go. I've got a good idea." So I later decided to start this fundraising opportunity, and I call it Crystal Patches. Within 3 days, me and a friend, we went to every pharmacy in the northwest Calgary, and we picked up as many eye patches as we could find. And I called a bunch of my friends and I said, "Hey, do you want to have a patch party?" And they look at me like I have 5 heads. And I'm like, "No, really, like we're going to bedazzle eye patches." So my friend who has this restaurant, it's closed on Sundays, and he offered his table space. So we went there with all our decorations and glue, and he had a meeting there with another girl, and she's like, "Oh, like is that why you have Sunday off? Is it like a daycare or something here?" And then all of a sudden, us 20